Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Kirsty, and this is our podcast, Love Needs No Words.
Hello and welcome to this week's podcast of Love Needs No Words. We're joined by the popular Instagrammer, Andrea Davies, who is known for posting about her son Oliver, who is diagnosed autistic and nonverbal, and her daughter Lily, who is just amazing with him, and just their family's journey from the start to now. And Kirsty and I feel like we know Andrea already because we've been following her journey from pretty much the beginning.
So I guess a good place to start for those people who might be listening but perhaps haven't been following you is, could you tell us a little bit more about your journey with Oliver?
Yeah, so Oliver is my firstborn. He is such a wonderful little boy. I loved my maternity leave. I was obsessed with him. We had the best time. He was what you would class as, and I put it in like little bunny ears, a good baby. He, slept through. He was very gentle. He didn't cry a lot. He laughed a lot and things like that. And I absolutely loved it to the point where I didn't even want to go back to work. But then it got to, I remember going back to work and then actually deciding, I want to take a little bit longer off. But that was when he was around 1, and that's when I kind of started to notice that he wasn't speaking. He wasn't saying any words at all. He was kind of making sounds, but the classic dada, mama, baba, things like that. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I've always been surrounded by children. I'm a teacher myself. I've worked in nurseries and primary schools and things like that. So I was very aware of like a child's development. And I was told a lot, he's just a boy, because he was very active. He was crawling at 6 months, walking at 9 months. He was climbing upstairs before he was 1. It was unbelievable. So it was like, he's just waiting. He's just a boy. Boys just take a little bit longer, all of that stuff. But I just knew. He just stopped. He kind of just wasn't really looking at me. He wasn't engaging in any instructions. He wasn't interested in showing me toys. He wasn't interested in toys. It was just those little things that, as he got a little bit older, that you could kind of brush off a little bit or ignore, in a sense, just really started to shine through. I was with him 24 hours a day. I just had this feeling. And then he got to about 18 months, and we were very obsessive of trying to get him to wave and things like that. Like, you don't realise. I would say to people, he should have waved by now. And like, really? I'm like, yes, he should have. And he should be responding to his name and things like that. So I kind of knew from that point he was definitely sort of delayed. But then that's, I started to look into, what it could be, and that's when autism sort of came to the forefront. So from that point, I started pushing for to see the health visitor before his 2-year check, and that was, and it was like, he's done really well physically. So but I was like, he doesn't say any words, and he isn't engaging and things like that. So we got sent to something called Chatterbox, which was to sit with children and basically say bubbles a million times and I was like, all the things that I was already doing. That went on. COVID hit, as we all know. I was heavily pregnant with Lily, and that was a very, very emotionally difficult time, because I had professionals in my home telling me how to engage with my child, recording me, and I'm heavily pregnant, very emotional, trying to figure out, wow, am I such a bad parent? What am I going to be like with my next one? Is this my fault? Nobody was listening to me, but I was absolutely adamant. I think if I was to do it again, if it came around that Lily was autistic, I always said this, I wouldn't allow anybody to treat me the way I was treated. It was made to feel like it was your fault instead of being believed. It was, what can you be doing that's better? So yeah, that kind of went on, and I saw a paediatrician, and I felt like sometimes I never knew what I was going to get. Sometimes I would be ignored, and then other times I would be absolutely like, not physically, but like mentally, like slapped across the face, because they'd say something like, you might have never talk. And I remember a health visitor saying, well, they're only sponges, the brains are only like sponges till they're 2. And then there isn't another surge until the teenagers. And I was like, sat there like, what do you mean? My 2-year-old isn't speaking, isn't engaging, isn't interested in anything. and you're telling me I've missed his sponge phase, you know.
Yeah.
It's absolutely devastating. So
It's just so thoughtless, isn't it? They're just
it is
not, they don't
absolutely
think about
thoughtless.
how you might feel. We were talking about that just last week, how you're made to feel as a parent when things aren't going typically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The classic, do you talk to them and do you read to them? You know, that all the
Turn the
time we were
television off.
getting that. Yeah, turn
Yeah.
the tele. And you're thinking, of course I'm talking to them all the time. I'm desperate for them to talk. It's really
Yeah.
damaging, actually.
Me might laugh about it now because I remember it was like bath time, and I was like shouting through the other side of the room, I don't hear you speaking to him. The paediatrician says we've got to speak to him more.
Yeah.
Why can I hear silence? And
Yeah,
we laugh now so much because it was insanity.
of course it
It
is.
was like
Yeah.
a 24-hour monologue with him, and we were still made to feel like we weren't speaking to him. It was insanity. He got diagnosed at 3 years and 4 months of age, and I remember the phone call, and it just felt like a formality for me by that point. I was so over
Yeah.
it. I knew he was already autistic, and it was just a case of getting him into a nursery, which wasn't appropriate for him because he had an additional need that was not being recognised. I got him in for 2 mornings a week because that's all he could cope with, just so an educational psychologist could come in and see him, because he wasn't.
Yeah.
Said they wouldn't diagnose him till they saw him in a social setting in a nursery. So I was like, it's not suitable for him, but I still have to do it. And I felt absolutely awful because he would come back from those mornings and just be so dysregulated, so upset, meltdown after meltdown. He just wasn't my Oliver anymore. And I felt like I lost him a lot during that time, due to like the dysregulation. But I had to do it in order for him to be seen to get the diagnosis, which also I think was terrible.
Just awful.
But once he got that, and everyone started believing me around me, it's that thing. I was saying he was autistic, and you just knew they were like, "Oh, is he diagnosed?" Sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
Just you giving him a label, and
Mm.
then once he got his official diagnosis, then it couldn't really be ignored.
I think we've talked about that before, where because people can sometimes say things or make you feel like you don't really know whether they're autistic or not. And it was
Yeah.
soon as I got the diagnosis, it was like, okay, right. Because let's be honest, nothing really happens after that. You don't really get any sort of extra support. You've still got to do a lot of the work, but it is just that relief that you
You
now
don't have to
know.
justify anything. You can kind of
Exactly.
just say the diagnosed autistic. You don't have to be. They're on the pathway, and then
Yes.
Yeah.
go
Yes.
through the this is why sort of thing.
We're
Yeah.
still in that journey at the moment. So Max is on the pathway, and we're still in the like we know there's something. We have been advised that it's quite possibly autism. That's the pathway that he's on at the moment. And some days you'll have a good day, and I think, are we doing like, is this right? And then we'll have a really bad day or a difficult day, and then you think, yeah, this is definitely what it is. But until we've got that clarification,
Yeah.
it's really hard. There's still a lot of up and downs, I think. Even though we're
Yeah,
totally
there
accepting
is.
of him if he does, it's still that lack of clarity around what is actually driving all of this. Yeah, it's not easy.
I completely understand that, because I used to have those days
Mm,
where I with Oliver, and he would be looking at me and he'd be doing something, and I'd be
mm,
like, wait a minute. Oh, and even though I knew, because I didn't
mm.
have that sort of piece of paper in front of me
Yeah.
again, because you and it doesn't take away anything. I wouldn't change Oliver for the world of who he is, but there is still that glimmer of hope in a
Yeah.
way. And I don't know if it's hope. I don't want it to sound terrible, like I hope they're not autistic, because that's not what it is. It's
Yeah.
more that kind of like, oh well, for some parents it's terrifying, and I know that a lot of parents cry
Yeah.
when they get that diagnosis, even though they've had this huge pathway, and things like that. And it's because it finally hits home that it's a lifelong thing.
This is it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that
Sometimes,
hope is actually. It's not the hope that they'll change or be a different child. It's you don't want your child to have anything in their life that's going to make it harder for them. That's just natural, natural for a
yeah,
parent. And I suppose those moments of hope are where you see like light, where where those struggles that you perceive or you see on a day-to-day basis might just not be there for
Yeah.
them.
And I think as well, when it's your first, and I hadn't got any teaching background. I've had lots of nieces and nephews, but again, it was that instinct. I knew something wasn't quite right. But I remember my mum saying, "He's not looking at me," and I was very defensive. I was like, "It's COVID, mum. He's not seen anyone for about 6 months." And there was the denial for a little bit that it was okay. And even the speech and language therapist was very back and forth at first. It could be, but let's give him some time. And then as it got nearer to the diagnosis, it was like, okay, it's very apparent now that, he's got autism. But as soon as you can then we were talking about the fight or flight, weren't we, last week? And then you can fight and you can think, right, what do I need to do to put into action to help, any techniques that I can use. But before, like you said, I was just talking to him constantly, and it was never going to work, and it was exhausting. And at times we would have arguments, it's like, stop looking at your phone, talk to him. It was like, I've literally been looking at it for a minute. But it just became all consuming. I was saying about how many things I've bought on Amazon to just connect with him in some way. For us at the moment, it's the fridge and the dishwasher are a lot more interesting than any toy. But now I've learned that's his way to regulate, and that's what's fun for him. So just let him get on with it. It's fine.
And these are the things. Sometimes I think it is a completely different way of thinking, isn't it? There is an engagement, and our children have enjoyment, and they have good days and they have bad days, and it just like every child does, it just looks different, if that makes sense. And I always see that now, and I think, autism, I remember just Googling it, and it was like terrible life, meltdown after meltdown.
Yeah, it's so depressing.
Emotionally inept, no empathy, socially awkward, like all of this stuff. And it was just, there wasn't anything positive. And I think obviously the media and the lack of awareness around it does kind of give you that. People either think that they're like, I don't know, Sheldon from Big Bang or Rain Man, or they see like the other side, which is, violent, hitting themselves, all this, there doesn't seem to be any understanding the 99% spectrum that's in between those two extremes. And that's why it can be so scary.
You touched on it briefly there, but you talk on Instagram about the different stages you went through on your diagnosis journey. Can you talk through those? Because I think a lot of people could relate to that.
The fear stage, which is the what's wrong, what's going on, like this is not good, that was, I used to sit on Google at the middle of the night at like 3 a.m. in these black pits of Google forums of, will my child ever speak? What will happen? Are they going to have a life? All this type of thing, and I should never have done that. It was like the worst idea ever. And I always say to people, stay away from Google forums. Look for people who are living the life now. Like, one of the reasons, obviously, why I do the page is because look for actual children that are in this society now whose families are thriving and doing things. And because the internet is a very negative place. If you let yourself go there, you can type in anything and you can get any negative response if you type the right thing in. If that makes sense.
I've done that.
And then obviously I've been through the denial phase. I remember listening to people who would go, oh, don't worry about it. He'll catch up. And, oh, I don't really think so. So I just was like, I'll just, cover my ears, cover my eyes, and I'll just try and ignore it for a little bit longer. But then time goes on and you can't ignore it anymore, sort of thing. I had the stage where I was angry. I was really angry. Why me? Why us? We really wanted Oliver. We care for him so much. He's so loved, and I was like, why my son? Why does he have to have these struggles? And it would really frustrate me when I'd be out and I'd be at a play centre and I'd see parents like just not engaging with the children, not being bothered, and a lot of parents that don't even want to be parents. And I felt angry that my child was having to have these struggles. And then you have that stage where it's like a really weird stage, because then you have no choice but to kind of go on to the acceptance stage after you're really sad as well. So I feel like I went through a really sad phase. You know, wasn't myself. I was crying all the time. I didn't really want to speak to people about it. It was COVID, so it was quite easy for me to shut myself away from it all, and from other people. But I got fed up of smiling, you know, around people, and he was 2 years of age, and people would be able to go, "Oh, pass me the juice," and you know, the child would be able to. It's like that sense sort of envy stage as well, in a way.
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
envious of other parents being able to have these experiences with the child that I was like so desperately wanting. And then then it moves on, and I went into the sort of acceptance stage, and I'd already gotten to that point by the time the diagnosis happened. But all of this happened very, very quickly. You know, it was kind of like, I felt like 1 month I was in one stage and then in another. And I feel like I always say to people when I get messages, just let yourself feel what you need to feel.
Yeah.
Because if you bottle it up, it's going to stay there. But you have to move through it. You also can't stay in that stage, because if you don't move through it, you won't be able to be happy, and your child won't be either. But obviously I'm so glad that I was able to move through that quite quickly, and now here we are, and we have a lovely life and really make the most of it. So
our podcast is called Love Needs No Words, and obviously you've mentioned with Oliver that he's nonverbal at the moment, so that's really kind of relatable for you. How's he found kind of over the years to communicate with you, like his own ways of doing that?
So Oliver's favourite is like the drag. So it's like the hand drag, which, to be honest, I dreamt of for years, because he was an extremely passive child, and he never got frustrated, and he would just kind of like, he never really prompted you to get anything. Like, I was very much like, I know he's thirsty, I'm gonna have to get him a drink. I know he's gonna be hungry, I'm gonna have to get him food. And I remember just sitting there wishing for him to be a bit more intentional. So remember the stages of communication, and every child is unintentional to start with, you know, and it's the crying when they're a baby and things, but they're supposed to move on to the intentional communication. So they cry with the intent of getting the reward or getting what they want, or they point to, you know, as an intentional communication, or they take you somewhere. And Oliver was extremely delayed with that. So when he started doing that, very happy, and it's still his choice now. It still is go-to. We have used PECs, and he has an AAC device, which is a iPad that has buttons that he presses, and it'll say the word. So I know that works really well for some children, so they can make sentences and stuff. But with Oliver, we did PECs, and he was not really motivated by that, and also he doesn't like cartoon images. He never understood what they were. They have to be the physical, real life images. So it couldn't just be mum and a cartoon of a mum. It would have to be me.
Yeah.
So like the physical thing, it couldn't just be crisps and a cartoon pack of a crisp. It'd have to be
the actual crisps.
That he has, sort of things. Otherwise, the language, because he has a receptive language difficulty as well, so that would become too confusing for him. So he doesn't use PECs anymore at all. He used to tap. It was amazing, because he did progress, and he did start tapping the films that he likes, and that was amazing. But it's very limiting for him. You know, with it being a folder with minimal things. So the AAC, he uses that in school, but he's not bothered about using it at home, because he uses other means, like on the TV, he'll like swipe up as a hint for me to like go up. He'll swipe across if he wants me to swipe across. To pick films, he'll tap now. So we were in Asda, and we were in the ice cream section, and he walked straight over to the Twisters and was like tapping the freezer. That's how
I love it.
Grabs your hand, walks you over, and taps the freezer where the Twisters are.
He knows what he wants.
I was going to say, I bet he knows exactly where they are as well when he walks
Honestly,
in.
they've moved them around as well, so I was really impressed. Like, he was like looking, he's like, there they are. So,
it blows my mind.
That's his sort of go-to now, is, you know, he still chooses at home to do the drag and the point, and the pointed is amazing, because he's never, you know, again, that's quite a new thing too. He uses his eyes as well, like he'll look in the direction of things, but that's because I know him so well. But obviously school and new members of staff need he needs to progress with his communication for those reasons. So he is using his AAC to make choices at school and stuff like that, which has benefited him within school as well. There'll always be that level of worry where, if he's sick, that's always a worry. If he hurts himself, because there isn't any real way of him telling me if he's got headache. And and there are levels of me that find that upsetting, but speech for me, it isn't even on our radar anymore. If somebody says to me, do you think he's going to speak? I will say to you, no.
Yeah.
And that's because statistically, there is a high amount of autistic people that don't speak, are nonverbal, and my son is probably going to be one of those.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not punish myself over that sort of thing. And also, I think having Lily has probably helped with that as well.
Yes.
If I had 2 nonverbal children, that would be a lot more difficult. And I think that I've got that. She's taken away a lot of that pain, if that makes sense. And it's a reality that maybe some people don't really want to talk about, but she has taken away a lot of that focus from Oliver. If I had just had Oliver and it was all just about him, and it was all so consuming, because it was before I had Lily, and I had no choice but to take a step back once I had Lily. Like, I can't make it all about him anymore, but it was the best thing because I stopped torturing myself. And I think, as I say, everybody's situation's different, everybody's journey's different, but it's been a long time now since I've really cared about him talking. I don't even know like what I would think if he did speak. I know I'd cry. I know I would. I'd burst into tears, and that would be the thing. But I don't want that to be the forefront of our lives.
Yeah.
Because we have such a nice life anyway, and he's happy.
Yes, that's all that matters.
Really
yeah. I said the same. As soon as I had Isabel, I stopped basically thinking for him all the time. So like you were saying, it's exactly what I was like. I'd have a drink ready as soon as he got back from nursery, and I'd have snacks ready. I didn't even know if he was thirsty or not. I didn't even give him the opportunity to tell me, in his own way. But I was already thinking, well, he needs his snack, and as soon as I had Isabel, he had to lead me to things, and he had to somehow communicate that his drink was up there or his iPad was over there. And again, for me, it was like she's really helped with my journey, because she's just taken that pressure off completely, because I had a baby to think about.
No, I agree. And massively with that bit where you said they had to learn how to communicate. They had to come and get you, because you would be distracted. Your baby, and it was honestly, it's been the best thing for Oliver. 100% best thing. And now you see the relationship, and it's great. Like, he has such a lovely bond with her, and I didn't know if that was ever going to happen, and I kind of left it to it, let it work out, and let them figure it all out between them and whatever. But Lily has not given him a choice. But she's very understanding. She knows when to give him his space as well. And he comes to her now, which is really nice.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it, that they find their own way of communicating with them. I was saying to Kirsty that Isabel at the moment, she drops her dummy, and I say to Alex, can you pick Isabel's dummy up? So he picks it up, and she's learned that's the way she can get him to look at her in the eyes. And have that communication. And she goes ta and smiles, and then about 5 minutes later she's like, oh dear, and then he picks it up and puts it back in. She's like, ta, and you can just tell she's so chuffed with herself.
It's all about those little bits of connection. That's what it's all about, and they'll grow and grow further with that. And that's what it was. It started off as the smallest little things, so there's little tiny bits of light, that used to just happen so often. And then Oliver got to about 4, and Lily was 2, and then it really started looking at her properly and acknowledging her in the room.
You talked earlier about dysregulation, and that's something that we find quite difficult with Max, and we really notice like change really throws him, and that obviously then kind of builds up, and we're still in the kind of phase of actually there being quite big meltdowns. What does Oliver do for regulation. I've seen that he has his iPads quite a bit. We also, both of our boys use iPad to regulate. Have you found that? Is that his main kind of tool? And how have you found like people's reactions to that, him having his
So,
iPad?
so Oliver's iPad was a lifesaver, particularly between the ages of, I'd say, 2.5 to 5, I would say, to the point he at one point he couldn't be without it, and that was quite difficult because of this perception of like, oh, you know, iPads, TVs, the stunt development and all this stuff, like the judgment of it. And I found myself being quite defensive in the beginning. But I was like, my child doesn't play with any toys, is not interested, is screaming all the time. And the only thing that works that stops my child screaming, because it's horrible for him, absolutely horrendous. He'd go red, he'd everything all the time. And I would have to be watching it. And it was emotionally damaging for me as well on both parts. So I was like, let the boy have his iPad, you know, let's just but it was a fine balance between too much and not enough. And that's the thing that I've found. I was really happy at one point for about a year. I was like, he can have it all he wants. He can have it all he wants. It made life a lot easier for us because when he couldn't regulate because he was too young to learn self-regulation, and he's only really kind of figured that out in the last sort of year and a half, how to regulate himself better. You know, he still obviously has his meltdowns, but they're nowhere near as bad. And that was saving grace for us, you know. But you're going to get people who look at you. You're going to get people in restaurants, whatever. We personally haven't had anybody say anything to us, but I know a lot of people that have had things said to them. You know, or you know, you should be raising your own children, not the iPad and things like that. And me and Mike are on board with this completely, where we're like, we don't care about other people's opinions. People are always going to have them.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Opinions are like bumholes. Everybody's got one.
Yes. I love that.
So, yeah. You know, it's like everyone's got out wants to have the 50 pence into a life that they know nothing about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that you have to learn to zone out and just not be bothered. Yeah. We don't even notice. You know, people could be staring at us, but we don't even notice anymore because we don't care.
On that point, you guys go away quite a bit on holidays, and there'll be a lot of people listening that will be, I suppose, it's quite anxiety fueling going away anyway. But when you're a SEND parent, you feel even more anxious about it. I know that I do. Both of us are going abroad next year. Have you got any tips for us? Please help us, Andrea.
Well, if you we take 2 iPads for Oliver and a backup battery, so there's never one that's not charged to avoid any sort of like chance times where you think, you know, is it run out of battery or whatever, or if one goes in the pool by accident.
Yeah.
We have 2 Kindles for him now. We actually, so you've got you can do the fast track, which is obviously when you go through the airport. You've got special assistance, which you can take advantage of. It's all about what your child's needs are, really. Oliver's extremely passive, and he used to want to run into the pool and things like that. So he would never be able to sit without a life jacket on. Things like that. Like, it depends on the needs. If go to a villa, if noises aren't great, if it's, you know, your child's sensitive to noises, don't worry about anybody on the plane. You're never going to see them again.
That's a very good point.
Unless they turn up at your hotel.
See them on the bus. Oh no.
You know, we've had one flight where Oliver absolutely screamed. You know, he was screaming his lungs out, and it was a late flight. It got delayed, and we'd never do it again. So my thing is just daytime flights. Yeah. If your child, we always take squeezy juice with us. It's little things like, you know, the concentrated juices.
Yeah. Instead
of relying on getting it there, because I know Oliver won't drink water and won't drink like orange juices and stuff like that, so we take those with us. If your child has specific dietary requirements, take some extra food just so you know if they're very particular with it, but also just enjoy it. The amount of parents I haven't had, I think maybe I've had one message from hundreds of families that have said that me going away has made them want to go away. And all of them bar one said thank you, we had a great time.
Oh, that's
You
amazing.
know, and yeah, there are sometimes going to be meltdowns. Like, I'm honest, like I went when I went on holiday last time, I go, right, he's having a meltdown, and it's usually probably day 4 or 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're the same for
You know, and I let him, and I
yeah,
just leave him.
tolerance is just gone. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, because it is all very different and whatnot, and but don't let it ruin your holiday. Just go
Yeah.
and allow your child to have that moment, and then let them reset, and then just carry on.
What does a meltdown look like for Oliver, just out of interest?
So it'll start just as like an underlying whinge, like a moan, and like
Yeah.
hands over the ears sort of thing, and then it progresses to his worst ones were like he'd lie on the floor, kick his feet to the floor, slap his head, um, throw himself back. But now we put him in his safe beds, and he's learned by just by continuous reinforcement of that, he goes in his safe space bed, and he'll just scream and scream and scream, basically, and like kick his legs. That's what a meltdown. I used to have to hold him around the ages of like 4. I used to have to physically hold him to stop him from like hitting himself. But now he doesn't do that anymore. So now it's just the screaming and like the thrashing round.
Yeah,
But
Max
it goes off.
thrashes as well. It's
Yeah.
like his body goes really stiff, and he's just like yeah. It's like there's electricity going through his body. Is the only way I can kind of describe it.
And it's only now that he does meltdowns a lot less that I don't have. I had like a physical reaction when I used to hear that screams, like my heart rate would go up. I'd start to feel sweaty, things like that. And it's only now that I'm noticing I'm not getting that reaction anymore. And that's taken like a good while for me to not have that like immune response to it.
Yeah.
So again, and that's something that's not necessarily talked about.
So both of the boys are starting school in September.
Mm.
So how did Oliver adapt into school? Was that quite a
Him going
change?
to a specialist provision was like the best thing that ever could have happened to him. He
Yeah.
was already in full time, so we had him in a specialist nursery when he was 4, and
Okay.
he was doing 30 hours a week then. So he went from 6 hours, you know, at a nursery that couldn't cope with him on a Tuesday and Thursday morning, to being there full time, because they knew how to regulate him, they knew what they were doing, they knew um all of the tips and tricks for him. And also when he had bad days, they weren't on the phone to me straight away saying you need to come get him.
Yeah.
You know, they're very positive, and if your child's in the right environment, they'll be supported, and you know, they'll be given that space they need. And they also, you know, they won't panic if they are having some struggles. They'll work through it with them, and then they'll tell you and help you out as well. But he just went off, and it was like, see ya. And he was like, I
Wow.
love school, you know. And he's been there now for 2 years. This is his 3rd year. And he also goes on transport as well. That was a big thing to sort of put him on that. But also again, I've had to learn to be trusting, because you've got to do that. You've got to learn to trust other people with your child, especially when they're non-verbal. It can be really, really hard. But most people are great people, and there's things around that can scare you if you look into it and stuff. But he's thriving, absolutely thriving. How he's come along, his communication with people, his attitude, his regulation, everything like that is all been so brilliant since he started school. I always say 5 is such a big age.
Yeah.
It was a big jump of just in terms of like my life becoming a lot more centered, his life becoming easier, you know, him having the right support. You don't realize how much of a difference it makes, because nurseries, as much as we can do, there's not a lot, you know, in terms. And my child was in a specialist nursery, but was still in partly mainstream, because it's not enough funding for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope you have that same experience.
Max got his EHCP after we'd gone through the school application process. So his school wasn't named on the HCP. We went through the regular application. So he actually didn't get the school that we wanted him to go to, which, to be fair, the school he's been given seemed brilliant. So fingers crossed. But I can't say I'm not stressed about it. I'm really quite stressed about it. Because it's just hard to envisage them in that kind of environment, I think. And
Yeah.
he's young in the year as well. He's a July birthday, so that obviously puts him at a slight disadvantage. And then there's obviously all the additional stuff. But I was just really, really pleased that he got an EHCP, because that's such a fight as well. And I feel like that's at least one layer of protection for him. And I know like the EHCP journey is really difficult for so many people. Do you get a lot of messages about that?
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
time. You know, how long is it going to take? You know, I've been waiting for this long. What do I do? My child been denied one, you know, and or they've been given one and it's not appropriate, and it's not written right, and there's things missing. I don't really get a lot of positive stories about EHCP processes, to be honest.
No. I can't give you one either.
No.
Yeah, it's a hard journey for many, I think.
It's such a
You
fight.
have to fight, and the one thing about being us parents is that you learn that if you don't fight, you get kind of walked all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reality.
You get quite hardened to it, don't you?
Oh yeah. I actually feel bad for anyone who has to deal with me now. So just don't
My
have any.
emails to the local authority are so direct as well. I don't even bother with the hope you had a nice week. I'm just like, this is what I need.
Just get straight to the point.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, I remember my mum saying, you used to be so shy when you were younger, and she's like, now you're turning into me, and I'm so proud. And I'm like, thank Alex for that, because the strength I've got now is unbelievable. That's one of the things I was going to say that we love about your page, is that you're not afraid to say, you know, some of the things that people have said while you're out, or some of the things that you've heard other people have had to deal with. So what are some of your sort of like top bugbears?
Do you know, I really hate people, and I get like people who just stand and stare. I just don't understand. Like, why are you bothered? Like, why is my life and my son's life like making such an impact on yours that you just have to stand and stare or comment? There was one time we were on holiday, and I know that a mum and her mother, so the grandma, stopped the child playing with Lily because of Oliver.
Wow.
And she was staring at him. They were looking, and I just kind of like I would catch them looking, and then Lily tried to play with this little girl, and the little girl came over and said, "Can I play with her?" And I heard them say, "If you play with her now, you'll have to play with her all holiday." And that, and I was like, "What?" And then we were looking at Oliver, and I was like, "Are they just really grumpy people? Like they don't want to engage?" But then 10 minutes later, they had the girl playing with some other little girls in the
Wow.
pool. It wasn't an issue with Lily. It was the looking at Oliver, and because I caught them on a video. I was filming Oliver on a video, and I caught them in the back, and they were staring at him and talking about them, just like, and that it's things like that. And I would have said something if I'd have noticed, but it's only because when I watched the video back that I saw it. I was too busy watching my son, sort of thing. But it's things like that, you know, when people make a judgment and then are bringing up children to be like that as well, to exclude, and to not, when they're not open at all. Like, who are you raising? What are these children that you're raising when you encourage them to stay away from that diversity? You know, I was like, do they think that we're like such terrible parents? You know, I couldn't understand, I couldn't fathom why they would stop their child playing with my daughter. But ironically, well, actually, Lily came back crying because the girl went over and said, don't want to play with you." She came back crying.
That's horrible.
About it, you know, said, "I don't think she's very nice, Lily. Don't want to play."
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Play. If she's not going to be nice to you, you don't want to play with her. Well, that night, she's running around, and this little girl, nobody was playing with this little girl because she was being quite mean to other people, and there's no, for that reason. So Lily goes up, she's so sweet, and she was like, "Are you okay?" and starts playing with the little girl. And I walk in, she goes, "That's my mummy. Mummy, I was just telling her how you said she wasn't a nice girl." I was like, oh my goodness.
It's amazing.
I was like, really? But, my little Lily came in and saved the day, and the little girl had somebody to play with because nobody else was playing with her, and that it's just things like that where there's just the
Yeah.
preconceived judgments, the comments, the tutting, the, you know, and that's the thing, and we'll all have to deal with it.
I was
And
going
I'm
to
sure
say,
someone will
yeah,
say something directly to us at some point, and Mike goes, I feel sorry for them. Like,
yeah.
that's what he says. I actually feel sorry for them. And I always say, like, most people are great, you know, and it just it can take that one person and it'll just stick in your mind, and but that's not everybody.
I've talked in the podcast about things that Alex is doing now that a year ago he wasn't doing. What are some of the things that Oliver's doing now that you, even a year ago, didn't expect him to be doing?
Toileting.
Yes, talk us through
What's
that.
your journey?
Toileting. My child doesn't wear a nappy all day. Is
Oh,
absolutely out
amazing.
all day. Sits on the toilet, points his little business down, and goes for a wee.
What's your secret? Tell us everything.
We let him, you know, do it. It was all led by him.
Oh, wow.
So 100% led by him. I, again, was very much on the thing of I could try this over and over again, and if he's not ready, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
where I
gonna
am at the
happen.
moment.
And even so this started last August. He started showing the signs that he was aware of holding and things like that. And it came about when we were on holiday and he was in swimming. He's got incontinent swimming shorts. They just look like swimming shorts. He's been out of swimming nappies because they're useless anyway. But he used to wee in them, and then all of a sudden he stopped and he only wanted to wee in his nappy. That was the first stage. So he would handles a nappy to get put in that and have his shorts taken off. And that was like the first sign that, oh, he's holding. This is good. He's aware, and it's gone from there. So it's not anything magical that I've done. It was when he was ready. I saw the sign, and we've gone with it, and we've slowly now, from August last year to August this year, we've gone from him requesting a nappy after being in little swimming shorts to then completely coming out of nappies and requesting the nappies to go back in, and then going into the toilet to have a wee with a nappy on, to then sitting on the toilet with a nappy on, to then sitting off, no nappy on the toilet, and starting to wee. It's been a process, and school have been amazing with that as well. They really, really helped. So it's all because he's ready. So he's not there with number twos yet. He's not ready, and you know. But I'm starting the same stage. So we now request a nappy, and he usually goes around 5 o'clock. He won't go in school, so we'll always do it at home. And now he has to go in the bathroom. Yes, and then he comes out and he gets out of that straight away. He gets cleaned up and he's done. So then the next stage after that will be he has to sit on the toilet in the nappy and do it. Even though he does have a learning difficulty, he has a receptive language issue and he's nonverbal. He is now using the toilet.
That is incredible, isn't it?
Right. It's really
That
good.
is amazing.
Were you like heightened to watching Lily's development and being aware of what she was and potentially wasn't doing?
Yeah, I used to watch everything to do with Lily. Everything. I will always be, for me, 99% that she's neurotypical, but there'll always be that 1% of me which is always aware of masking and always aware that autism isn't just Oliver.
Their relationship now is adorable, and you said that it's taken time to get to this stage and will continue to grow, I'm sure. Has it surprised you? And also, is Lily more aware now, would you say, of Oliver's autism, and how is she about the whole thing?
I did have those worries that he was never going to be happy with her and she was going to want to engage with him and he wasn't going to be bothered. But I had nothing to worry about because, as I say, they're amazing. And like today, she said to me, Oliver doesn't. We had sausage chips, and Lily wanted gravy. And she went, Oliver won't eat gravy because he's autistic. She went, you know, she has this thing, and I'm like, and she says Oliver doesn't talk because he's autistic, and Oliver eats my toys because he's autistic. So she has like this very sweet, innocent idea of him being autistic, and she does have an understanding, you know, and she knows that. Like she says, oh look, mummy, he listens to me now. Look, and she goes, Oliver, come here. And she's like, look, he's listening to me, and so she does. She's super aware, and she's she's very emotionally intelligent. like for her age and as a child in general. And she's very inclusive and things like that. So she has a lot of patience as well. So for her, I think we've like struck gold with her as a sibling, to be honest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really have. I think they're just going to get stronger and stronger because he's showing a reciprocation. They're saying last time we went on holiday, they tend to share a bed. When we go to this one place, there is one place that we go to, and it's a family member's apartment, and they share like a double bed. And when we come back, Oliver this year didn't want to sleep in his own bed. He wanted to sleep in Lily's bed.
Oh, that's adorable. If you could pick one moment in Oliver's life that sort of stands out for you, what would it be?
There isn't really any like major moment that I go like, wow, that's just one. Like I've got loads of wow moments with Oliver. Like even tonight, like he started kicking a ball.
Oh
like,
wow, that is a wow moment.
Like,
yeah.
He started kicking balls and like really enjoying it. Today he wanted to come and made some Angel Delight with Mike like tonight, and I put it on my stories. Yeah, and it's all these little moments that all add up with him, you know. Like I say, the first night he slept through after he got melatonin, that was pretty good.
I bet.
That was
Feel like a new
that
woman.
was a pretty big moment. Yeah. You know, his first wee on the toilet, like incredible moments. Like the first time he come up and give me a big kiss on the face without any prompting. There's loads of little things.
Oh.
Like him going up to Lily and giving Lily a hug for no reason other than he wanted to give her a hug. You know, there's so many things that for me and like our life with Oliver, they're just lovely there's just loads of wow moments.
Finally, what would be your advice to anyone at the start of their journey? So either thinking that child might be neurodivergent or they're waiting for a diagnosis, what would your advice be?
It's always just to trust your own instincts. You know, trust that you know best. You're the parent. You're the one who's around your child the most. Don't allow people to dismiss how you're feeling. And then once you've kind of got to that point, I always say look for people in similar situations because it really helps to find a positive person, you know, a child similar to your own, something like that, where you can, you know, relate to it so it's not so scary. Don't go on Google.
Don't go on Google.
Don't go on Google.
Don't Google. Don't do it. So.
Oh, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
It's been so interesting and inspiring to hear you, and thank you so much for bringing the positivity.
Yeah.
It's been brilliant. I'm glad you can see the positivity things. You two seem very nice and positive as well, so that's good.
Thank you.
I think we are mostly. We laugh a lot, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good, and it's nice that you've got each other as well.
Thank you.
Bye.